Welcome to the Sweet Spot Mini Episode 12. And these episodes I've been trying to do, as I explain every time, just for new listeners. This is not our normal episode. Usually I have Ken Pellman with me. And I'm trying to do these so we can put out an episode every week from the Sweet Spot. And so this is what I call the mini episodes, and they're usually a little shorter, and there's usually no current events or any extra things. It's just usually me just carrying on about my thoughts and different things going on in my head. But this episode, I thought I'd bring along a friend and someone that has been our travel partner with us for a couple of years now, I believe. And that is Michael from Concierge. Welcome, Michael.
Thanks, Lynn. Glad to be here.
Yeah, it's been a couple of years, right?
Yeah, I think it's over 3 now.
Wow, that is so hard to believe.
Yeah, it's we're getting old, buddy. I tell you.
I know it. So on this episode, I was thinking about talking about something that I've been kind of wondering about, and maybe our listeners have too, and that is visiting the Disney parks during this stage in our lives, the pandemic and the coronavirus going on and everything. And you've been to Walt Disney World a couple times now since they opened in July. So what was that?
Yeah.
What was your first impression? I don't know where to go back on this. So booking something like this when it first opened, it was probably a lot easier than it is now.
Yeah, well, it's still pretty easy. They've still have park cap restrictions, and I know a lot of your listeners, of course, are Disneyland focused, and that's great. And I think what we can do is we can kind of take some of these ideas and things that are going on at Walt Disney World and think about how this is going to apply to Disneyland when we finally get the green light out there. And but that's exciting. But because I know it's coming. You can see Disney starting to phase things in. They're ready to open the doors and go. But it took me a while actually to get down to the parks when they reopened. I was supposed to go in October with my daughter and my wife for her 21st birthday, and it literally, as we were getting ready to go the night before, it was Saturday, the night before Friday night, my daughter starts having symptoms that are, COVID kind of symptoms. Not feeling well, scratchy throat, all this kind of stuff. And so we went and got her tested Saturday morning. It came back negative, but she still had symptoms to the point where it's like, we can't fly on a plane. We can't go. Yeah. And probably the biggest thing we took away from that weekend, though, is I called Disney at, I think, around noon on Saturday. Our check-in was at 3:00. So you're talking 3 hours before we were supposed to check in. And I explained to the cast member, hey, my daughter came down with some COVID symptoms. We had her tested. She's negative, but we just don't feel like putting her on an airplane with other people. That's, the test isn't 100% accurate. Mm-hmm. So we're going to quarantine her and not come. 3 hours before we were supposed to check in, and Disney refunded us our entire trip. I thought for sure we'd lose our deposit. Mm-hmm. And so that has just been the theme of what we've found here throughout this whole COVID mess with Disney, is I haven't had a single person, a single family, anybody lose $1 because of lost deposits, tickets they couldn't use, anything like that. And so Disney's been amazing in that regards, and one of the reasons, of course, that we love to work with them. So
yeah, they don't want someone that potentially has COVID coming in their parks and infecting people, and then coming back, the media and things getting back to them. So they'd rather be safe and just refund that money, which is a smart move on their half, for sure.
Yeah, absolutely. And, of course, being a planner and that kind of aspect, I've always think of things from that perspective.
Mm-hmm.
And, one thing, I had one of your listeners contact me right when COVID hit, actually, and everything was kind of getting shut down.
Mm-hmm.
And he had booked, you have to be careful booking through these large companies that don't actually book through Disney. They buy Disney products and then resell them. So they buy up bulk Disney bookings and things like that, repackage them, and you're actually buying a trip through Joe Schmo travel agency.
Mm-hmm.
And you're not actually working with Disney, because what ended up happening, so one of your listeners who contacted me said, hey, I bought it through this company and I didn't get my money back. I got credit back for their company to buy a vacation in the future. Well, I mean, it was good that they got their credit back, but a lot of us were kind of strapped when everything shut down. Mm-hmm. And having a couple $1,000s from your Disney vacation that you'd already paid, that you planned to go, and now maybe your hours were cut, things like that. Mm-hmm. Getting that money back is very helpful. And so some situations like that. So working with Disney, or like a company like us, of course, and give myself a plug there. So shameless plugs.
That's
there.
Good.
But we work directly with Disney, and so we're not repackaging Disney products and reselling them. We're just kind of like your go between you and Disney to make sure that we handle some of the hassle parts and take care of it. But you're getting actual Disney reservations, and so always working with Disney right now is going to be a key to make sure you're. And I think this is important too when everything opens back up on the Disneyland side. Mm-hmm. You just know you're going to have that extra level of service and protection with Disney.
Right, and that's good. You guys are on top of it. All the the regulations, things that are going on, things you need to be aware of. And so that's good to know for future planning also.
Yeah.
So
now when it comes to the park, so I don't want to dominate anything.
No,
and so, feel free to jump in and ask me some specific questions. But, I really love talking about this because I just got back just about maybe it was a week ago or 2 weeks ago. I can't remember if it was last weekend or the weekend before. It was just right there. I think it was last weekend, actually. Mm-hmm. It's interesting, how everything is happening. And I was there in December, as you mentioned, as well. And in December, we actually took a lot of our planning team leads down with us that are normally they're West Coasters and don't get to Disney World as much. And it was a great time. So right now, and hopefully as COVID, starts to wane and Disneyland opens as well, flights continue to be cheap. And hopefully that will be one effect on Disneyland, that we'll see people that are from out of, the area that would normally need to fly in, that you'll still be able to get some cheap flights. And so one thing to keep an eye on, there's just, all kinds of great options out there right now, which has been nice. Mm-hmm. The other thing that is probably was one of the biggest changes that I saw down there that was very helpful. And you helped me because, like I said, I'm not the pro at Disneyland as much as I used to be. We got great people on our team now that live within an hour, 30 minutes of Disneyland. And so there are pros that a lot of times are helping plan those trips. But when Disneyland opens, do they allow you prior to go in kind of down to the castle, but like not go into the rest of the park until they officially open it? That's typically how it works.
Yeah, up to the hub.
Okay.
Yeah. Mm-hmm.
So very same thing they do at Magic Kingdom, Hollywood Studios. They let people in for 30 minutes, 45 minutes, an hour ahead of time. Well, they don't want to do that right now because they don't want people cramming together because of COVID. And this is going to, I'm sure, be the same when Disneyland opens back up. Mm-hmm. And so what they're doing is the moment you get into the park, you have free reign. You can just start hitting rides. And most of the rides are going to be open the moment they open the park. So people who normally think like, oh, I'm going to get there, around open, the park's probably been up and running for 45 minutes. That holding everybody at the gate kind of thing inside the park is not happening. And so get there early. Like this last weekend, my daughter's a huge Star Wars fan. So we went to Hollywood Studios and we got there at 8:15 in the morning. Park's supposed to open at 9. We got in right away. We hit the Slinky Dog Dash ride, the brand new Mickey and Minnie Runaway Rail ride, Toy Story Mania, and we're getting on the Millennium Falcon by 9:15. Like those are three, Toy Story Mania is like not necessarily a huge ride. It's been around for a while, but Slinky Dog, the Falcon, and Mickey and Minnie, those are three huge rides that can push our waits, during, non-COVID times. We got on them all within, the first hour, technically before even the park opened.
So you're saying that
advantage.
It's like I can't remember what we called it. I think it was like a hard open. So
yeah,
but it's not, because you said the park was supposed to open at 9, but they opened the gates before that, and they already had the rides going before 9.
Yeah, they did.
Wow.
So basically, instead of, normally they have you down and they do the castle show, right? And they fire up some fireworks and they officially welcome and open the park, and then everybody takes off for, like at Walt Disney World, everyone's taking off for, Seven Dwarfs Mine Ride,
right.
In Hollywood Studios, that kind of stuff.
Mm-hmm.
So, but they're avoiding this. Why there's no shows right now, there's no parades or the fireworks shows, because they don't want people congregating together in that manner. And so the moment you get in, you just go straight into whatever ride you want.
That's crazy.
And so,
I mean, it's good.
Yeah.
But what I'm thinking is, would that sort of thing work with Disneyland be more of a locals park, where if they knew, like, oh, it says 9, but they're going to let us in at 8, so then you have huge crowds at 8, or 8:30 or whatever.
Right. So, so you're definitely going to see. So that message, Disney's not putting out there, that they're basically letting you in and hitting rides 45 minutes early.
Right.
And so it's slowly leaking out there, and it will probably, that word will get out quicker at Disney than, or at Disneyland than it has at Disney World, because of that population, that customer differential there.
Right.
But it's still something to, if nothing else, it's an extra 30 or 45 minutes of park time.
Yeah.
So,
that's great.
One of the disappointing things a little bit is just the hours of the parks right now. So some of the Disney World parks are shutting down at 5 o'clock, like Animal Kingdom some nights shuts at 5, and so 9 to 5. That's 8 hours. And so that's when you're paying 100 and some for a ticket. That's, you're kind of looking at that. So having that extra time is, in the morning is important. And without the shows, there's a little less to do in some of these parks. So they're still very, fillable days. But, but it's something to, you want to squeeze. If you're like me, you want to squeeze all that Disney you can get out of your time down there. So,
sure. Yeah. Well, let me ask the question that at least I was wondering is, where I work, I have to wear a mask all day. But I have a lot of times where I take breaks or I'm away from kids or whatever, whatever I'm doing. So I don't really have to have it on all day. Having a mask on, and then Florida's a little different because, well, the weather's been good there lately, but it's not going to be pretty soon here. So
right.
How is it having to deal with that, going on rides and that, just your whole day?
Yeah. That's a great question. I think that it's something you definitely get used to. I'd say most people feel like they get used to it pretty quickly.
Yeah.
I would be lying if I said it wasn't mildly annoying, but I hate the idea of wearing masks outside, you're in an open area and the wind's blowing, I think Disney's doing it because they can't determine when you're outside in social distance and when you're not outside in social distance. So they're just like everywhere you have to wear it.
Yeah.
And, of course, they just want to make sure they're not a target for criticism as well. But it really didn't hamper the vacation at all. It does. The key to it is to make sure you space times to eat snacks, bringing snacks or things like that into the park so you have food to stop and eat, or stopping for dinner, lunch, breakfast, whatever, because those are your times that you can take off your mask and enjoy. And so even if it's just a snack, that you pull out of your backpack, you can sit down in a shaded area, at a table and enjoy some snacks and take your mask off for a little bit. So I'm sure the rule is just simply they had to adjust it because they didn't realize, when they first started, it was you can eat or drink without a mask. And so people would just carry around a bottle of Coke or something like that and be like, look, I'm drinking, so I don't have to wear a mask.
Yeah.
And so that's been, now you have to be stationary. And so it's important to have those kind of breaks. Disney's got some great, like, they call them relaxation stations. And so one of them in Epcot actually is the Ogre dining hall, which is normally where they do this like 5 princess dining. It's one of my top dining recommendations for families, because it's so princess based, and they're not doing the characters now. They've turned it into a relaxation station, and it's like, this is a great place just to come in and see. If you weren't, normally you'd have to spend $55-$60 a person to come in here. And so you can just kind of go in, take your mask off, social distance, and relax. And it's, out of the sun, heated, all that kind of, or heated or air conditioning, depending on the time of day. So really, it was interesting, because I thought, as someone who loves the shows, the older I get, the more I love the shows, the more I love the dining, all that kind of stuff. I thought, no shows, no end of the night fireworks, no Fantasmic. This is going to be a little depressing. It's actually been really enjoyable, compared to it. Sure, it is a little different, but it's been a lot of fun. It really has. And so, especially for people who like to ride rides.
Yeah. That's what I was just wondering, how it would, how your day would be affected by it. And it sounds like, for the most part, I mean, the only thing I could think of is, especially if it's a long line, you want to take a sip of water, or, have a snack while you're in line or something. I mean, that's really the only thing.
You're not supposed to eat and drink in line, but in general, people will do it before you get into the main queues. If before you get into the main queues, and I'll talk about this in just a second, but if you had a Coke or something with you, pull your mask down, take a sip, put your mask back up, pull your mask down, take a sip, as long as you're not just standing around with your mask down.
Right.
We were waiting in line to ride on Seven Dwarves. There was the churro and the Mickey pretzel station right next to us as the line, and it's like, yeah, we're gonna go ahead and get one of those. And so we were kind of eating it in line as we were going, but you be smart with it, that kind of stuff, and you're not like flaunting and all that kind of stuff. And Disney's pretty, they were pretty, chill about that kind of stuff. Now, once you get into the queues where it gets a little bit tighter, so when you get into the more traditional queues, so that's kind of the big thing now, that the lines look horrendously long. And that's because they're probably about 4 to 5 times longer than normal because of the social distancing. And they've got these markers on the ground every 6 feet to show where you're supposed to be standing behind, to kind of keep all the parties socially distanced. And for the most part, people do a pretty good job at that. Every once in a while, you'll see like someone will kind of forget where they're at, and they'll be up on you, and you look at them, and they're like, oh shit, and then they kind of back off, kind of thing. And so
so
for the most part, it's
per group, like so the grocery store or whatever. Okay.
Yeah. And so the standing in line. I don't mind waiting in line that's moving, but I hate I don't like rides where you let a big group in and you have to stand, and then it moves, and then you stand, and you move and it stands, kind of Haunted Mansion's a little bit like that.
Right.
But now, because of the kind of snaky aspect of the social distancing, it's almost like a slow saunter to the front of the line, as you go. It's like constantly moving. Room areas in the Haunted Mansion, like the stretching room, are not being utilized. They're not going to pack people in and do the stretching room. They basically have the entrance and the exit to the stretching room open, so you just kind of walk straight through, social distance through it onto the ride.
That's why I'm wondering how they're going to do that at Disneyland. I mean, because the elevator there is utilized as a transportation mode to get to the to the hallway there.
That's something I didn't even think about. Yeah, that's interesting, because that's one of those big key differences between Disneyland and Disney World, obviously, is ours, over at Disney World doesn't actually move, just the ceiling goes up, versus before going down. So, yeah, that'll be interesting to see how they accomplish that. But there are other things like that where I'm trying to think, if you've ever ridden the Rock and Roller Coaster, for example, where you go in and there's a scene with Aerosmith and everything like that, and then they let you into the next room. The new Mickey and Minnie ride has that same kind of, you watch a movie in a scene. Star Wars Galaxy's Edge, the Millennium Falcon, you kind of go in there with is Hondo, right? And he does his kind of thing, and you move on. All those things have kind of been stopped, and just Hondo's still doing his thing on a loop, but you don't go in there and just pack in with a bunch of people.
You just walk past it.
Yep. As the line moves. So
what about on Rise? On Rise with Ray, there is that.
So that one. So Rise is one where they've kept some of that, and they've implemented these color circles. So when you go in, they're like, okay, your circle, you and your family or your family group is color circle silver, and you're blue, you're red, you're yellow, you're green. And then after the whole Ray thing, when you get on to the actual transport, that gets hijacked or sucked into the starship, you have matching circle colors in that ship that you go on and get in there as well. And so, and then they kind of keep that when you go into the prison cell and all that kind of stuff. You have colors that you're matched to, and you go in. And so they've done a good job. That's definitely one you can't kind of just do a walkthrough on. So that's pretty cool.
It's funny that you think of. I mean, Ken and I always talk about these different scenarios, different rides. We're like, I don't know if that, like, once you think, I don't know if you've been on the Finding Nemo submarines at Disneyland, but can you imagine that? I mean, I don't know if that would open with the park when it does.
Yeah, that's a good question. I'm trying to think of things at Disney World that have not opened because of stuff like that.
The People Mover wasn't closed because of that, right? They were just other issues.
No.
Right? Okay.
Yeah, I think that may be closed because of Tron. I'm trying to remember what the Tron construction there.
Okay.
But everyone gets their own ride vehicle and all that kind of stuff, which is kind of fun, So, you're the only one in the boat, or you're the only one on the ride, or even the new Skyliner. Those hold up to 10 people, and so they're just putting your family group in the Skyliner. So it's kind of fun. You and your wife, or if you're going just the two of you and a couples thing, having your nice romantic Skyliner ride in the evening by yourself, and that's pretty cool. So,
what about Pirates in Small World though? Is that still your own boat?
So what they'll do, like when you have bigger boats like that, they'll leave a row between you.
Oh, okay.
So they'll do a thing in a row. Some of them, that when they can do that, but like on Splash Mountain, we had our own boat on Splash Mountain.
That makes sense.
So so some of that is like that, but it really was. I really enjoyed the fact that the lines continue to move, even though they seemed ridiculously long. Like they leave the standard queue and then stretch on for like days, and. What one cool aspect to that was, and there was a family with young kids behind us when we were there in December, with our team doing some training. Is the estimate was somewhere around 30 to 40 minutes to get on, and I knew we were going to be at least 20 minutes until we were into the actual normal standard queue, and so you're literally just out in the park, right? There's no chains or anything like that. So I was in line. The guy and his family were in line, and I told my team, I said, hey, while we're waiting in here, go ride the Little Mermaid ride right over there. It's a 5-minute wait. Just go get on the Little Mermaid. I'll stay in line here. And the guy behind me, after they walked out, he said, are you allowed to do that? And I'm like, I don't mind. Go ahead, have your kids go. And I'm cool with it. Like, you're here. And so him and his wife and his little ones went and I think did teacups, and then came back, 10 minutes later. Cause there was no, like, the waits on these smaller rides, were non-existent practically. And so, the same thing, if you need to use your restroom or something like that, you can just jump out of line, go use your restroom, go grab a churro, and then get back in. And dad's doing those dadly duties that we do, we hold the place in line, that kind of stuff. And so that was kind of fun, that, you can kind of, certain rides, you could kind of make that happen. So.
What about Tiki Room? Is that open over there?
So the Tiki Room is opened, and I think they're spacing them separate over there. I haven't been in the Tiki Room since there. I haven't been in the Country Bears either. So I'm not 100% sure what they've done in those. I'll have to check. And so, but I'm pretty sure Tiki Room was open there. Okay. You're talking right now at the max. If the parks are maxed, it's 30 or 35%. And they're not maxed. Hollywood Studios will max out this time of year right now. Hollywood Studios is maxed out because of the new Mickey and Minnie ride, all the Star Wars stuff, and Toy Story Land. They've got so much new in the last 2 years. So that one tends to kind of max out, but the other parks, even Magic Kingdom, weren't kind of there. Now, projecting forward to Disneyland, that place is going to max out. People are so pent up and excited to get back there. And then, of course, your mass of local people, the big question, of course, is going to be how they handle all the annual passes and all that kind of stuff.
So when they're saying, like, say 25%, is that of the park's capacity? So say the park's capacity, I don't know what it is now at Disneyland, but say it's 60,000. So it'd be 25% of the 60,000?
Yeah.
Oh, okay. Yeah. Okay.
That's my understanding of the way it works. Disney's really closed on how they on their figures and counts and things like that. Right. But there's times, at Disney World, really times like right now, where I don't know if the park is normally 35% filled. It probably is, but there are some times, right after the holidays in January or in February, when you're not over the weekend or the holiday weekends, that, if you go to, I like to use, Touring Plans is a great company. They do some great analytic work we like to use when we help our families plan their vacations. And they got some days rated at like, 1, 2, or 3 out of 10. There's no way they can be at like 25% on those days. Yeah. And you're seeing a lot of that right now, even with the caps, you're seeing a lot of, 1, 2s, and 3s when it comes to, the projections of what the park crowds will be like, which is nice.
Is for eating, like indoor dining sort of thing, is that just like, I mean, here in Utah, it's allowed, and it's just, they space it out a little bit. Is that
especially all your sit down dining is spaced out. But for example, this again is, it's a little tougher to get some reservations, so you got to be on it a little bit more, or, again, shameless plug, have your concierge help you get on it. But for example, Ogre's Cantina, have you ever been inside there?
Yes.
Okay. Did you stand the entire time you were there?
Yes.
Exactly, right? Because it's normally like standing room only. And you're lucky if you can get, a booth. Well, right now, they're not packing that place full because of COVID. And so you've got a good shot of getting a table. And so we ate there in December. We ate there when I was there last weekend. And in December, we got a booth, and it really is a much better experience when you can sit down and relax a little bit. And so, it's cool no matter how you do it. Yeah. But having a chance to sit down and enjoy it, and you can see everywhere because it's not packed with people. You can get some great video, get some great pictures, all that kind of stuff. And so that's cool. They're leaning heavily for the quick service. They are leaning heavily on mobile ordering. Right. Yeah. So there's some places you can't even order from. You have to mobile order, and that's your only option. So there's a few places you can walk in and still order, but mobile ordering's great, and you go in, you pick it up, and you just can't beat it. So.
Well, you're talking about Ogre's Cantina. I know that the only time I've been there, my friend Russell and I were there, and we had to share with another couple those standing tables, So I imagine that won't happen anymore as far as sharing. Yeah. For now.
Absolutely.
For now, at least.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Absolutely. So it really, there are some kind of cool, unintended consequences in that way that are, beneficial.
Right.
So,
Hmm.
yeah.
Yeah, I loved the mobile ordering. The thing that I liked about it the most was that it wasn't not everyone knew about it. So I'd see a long
Hmm.
line at a quick service restaurant, and I go, and I order it, and next thing you know, 5 minutes later, I'm walking out with my food. So, um,
Right.
and they're like, hey, how'd he do that? You know?
Exactly. Yeah.
Yeah.
And you look there, like I've done that at, um, for Dole Whip. I was like, this Dole Whip line's ridiculous, and there's
Hmm.
no one in the mobile order. And I kind of felt odd just mobile ordering Dole Whip, but like, hey, I'll do it, save some time. And by the time I order it and had it, like the guy that I kind of, you know how you do that thing when you get in line at the grocery store and you mark the guy next to you to see if you're making progress. I'm
Hmm.
sure nobody else does that. But not no one else is competitive like me. Yeah, so I did that thing, and I had my stuff well before the guy even had gotten up to order, and so you just can't beat it. And
Yeah.
then at Disney World, they've got this thing that they've implemented too, and I'm trying to remember if they had anything like this for Disneyland. I'm pretty sure they didn't prior. I think this is new for Disney World as well. But for your restaurants that require reservations, like Blue
Hmm.
Bayou or Carthay,
Right.
uh, all those at Disney World, they now have what they call like an electronic walk up or it's kind of like a wait list, like a walk-up wait list
Hmm.
that you can just electronically put your name on.
Oh.
So as they start doing everything, if they realize that they've got a bunch of last-minute cancellations or people are no-showing or they're just getting ahead, they'll open up like 10 reservations, on the walk-up list, and it'll tell you, probably within an hour or 45 minutes or whatever, and you just click, put my name on the walk-up wait list, and you can continue to do whatever you want, and then they'll text you when your table's ready. You just go there and get your table.
Oh.
So for example, when we were at Magic Kingdom, they've got Jungle Skipper's Canteen
Hmm.
that normally requires a reservation, but it said 1 hour on the walk up. So we said, hey, throw our name in there. We put our name on it. We hit, I think, Buzz Lightyear and Space Mountain, and about the time we were finishing those two rides, we got a text saying your table's ready. So we just walked over and got in line, and they sat us in about 5 minutes. So
That's
can't beat it.
great. Yeah, for sure. I hope they do that at Disneyland because
Yeah,
sometimes, at the last minute you're like, oh, I wish we could have, had a reservation for this. And
yeah,
yeah.
yeah. So it's so hard to get reservations now. Some of those things, and
Hmm.
to have an option that's a little more flexible is great.
Well, I'm trying to think of anything else that, unless you can think of something that has changed or that we should be aware of for a future visit. I mean,
Some of the stuff is more Disney World specific, like
yeah.
they used to have the luggage service and things like that through
Hmm.
the Magical Express that they're not doing. Of course, they're not going to be offering Magical Express past 2021 as well. It'll be interesting to see what happens with the Fast Pass and Max Pass because they're using the queues to help keep everything, moving for the standard lines. So it'll be interesting to see what happens in that regard. So
That's right. No
whether
fast
they,
pass, right? No.
yeah, and
Oh.
Fast Pass was included in your tickets at Disney World, where Max Pass, of course, you had to pay for at Disneyland.
Right.
I'm curious in the vein of cost savings mechanisms and things like that, if Disney's going to come back and make that a premier service kind of thing,
Hmm.
pay for Fast Pass Plus kind of thing once they reinstate it. But we'll have to
I
see. So
I think the paper fast passes are out. I would say at this point.
yeah,
I mean, they were kind of moving towards that, but at the same time, they hated to get rid of them, and then you're making people buy the Max Pass if they want Fast Pass, and I know they were trying to stay away from that by still offering the paper ones, and they did for a little while over in Tomorrowland. They were just
hmm
maybe a few months or a year before they were doing it where you can you had to walk up to this kiosk and do it electronically, but
right.
um, and so you didn't have to have Max Pass for that. So I'm just wondering.
Yeah.
We'll see. It's just I don't think they'll have that either because then you have a bunch of people walking up and touching the same thing over and over.
Exactly.
Yeah.
Yep, all that stuff right now. So like, there's a lot of classic rides, like Epcot comes to mind a lot, where you go through Figment of Imagination, and there's all these imagination, like hands-on kind of things to play with afterwards. Spaceship Earth, when you come down, there's all these electronic kind of, virtual reality things and all these other kind of things to play with.
Mansion.
All that kind of stuff is shut down right now. Yeah. And so they just don't want people touching the same screens, doing that kind of stuff. And so, and then of course characters.
Yeah. Oh yeah. How's everyone's behavior? Like, is everyone really nervous about touch? You know how like I always just lean up against railings. I don't really care. I didn't care about just holding onto rails and stuff. Is people more aware of that kind of thing? Did you notice?
I think they are. I think Disney's cleaning, well. I think you personally, I think some of the research is also showing that your chance of getting it by just touching something someone else touched is a lot less than I think we initially thought.
Right.
Doesn't mean we should let our guard down or anything in that regards. But so every ride, every time you get off a ride, they have hand sanitizer stations there. The best part I thought of you, it was a custodial member cleaning a sanitation station. I was like, and I said something to her. I was like, wow, you're cleaning you're sanitizing the sanitizing station. She's like, yep, we're doing it all. And so, they've got those there as soon as you walk off the rides. There's going to be things that they're not wiping down the roller coaster handrails between everyone necessarily. And so, as soon as you get off the ride, get your hand sanitizer, do your hands and move on. But I think people were, they're cognizant of it, but, not too, overboard, I think, in some aspects. So
I think it just made me think back to how naive I was back then. No. I'm just trying to think. The last time I was in a Disneyland park was about a week before everything shut down, and I remember it was still just talk at the time, like, oh, there's this virus going around. And I remember my wife and I bringing hand sanitizer for the first. We didn't usually carry it in the parks. We just wash our hands in the bathroom. But I remember us after every ride here, take a squirt, and that was a week before everything shut down. And now to think back to where we are now, it's just interesting how.
Yeah, isn't it funny? Like birthday cakes. Like, remember that time we used to have someone blow on a candle all over a cake, and then we just passed it around and ate it, right?
Yeah, we're fine.
Yeah. So
I don't know. That's. I'm excited. I just, I don't care if I have to wear a mask all day or not. I just want to get into a Disney park, and I know that there's a million other people that feel the same way.
Right. You want to make sure and try multiple masks. Bring multiple masks. That's one thing. I may have shoved my mask into some of my pretzel cheese sauce on accident. It's like, daggone it. And so, I've got cheese sauce on my Haunted Mansion mask. Dang it. So, but I had 3 of them with me so I could swap them out. And I think that they may have had 2 with me. But, bring a couple of masks. Make sure you have, sometimes just different things feel different on your ears after, just to change it up every couple hours or things like that. And, I had one that was much looser and one that was much tighter. So when I was going to go on a roller coaster, I put my tighter one on. And then when I was just kind of standing in line, I'd wear my looser one. And so, just a, different, just how it feels and things like that. So,
Cool.
Yeah.
Well, anything else you'd like to mention before we sign off here?
I think we covered quite a bit. Characters, I think that's the only other thing I didn't really talk about too much. Just they're doing these cavalcades. So instead of parades, all of a sudden you'll see it, in December, all of a sudden you'd see Santa just rolling down the street, with maybe a few people around, a small float kind of Santa thing, and it was unannounced. And so again, everything to try to keep people from like bunching up and waiting.
Right.
And so of course people would see, oh, it's Santa, so they'd kind of run to the street corner and they'd wave and all that kind of stuff, and then they'd disperse because it wasn't a long parade where people were waiting forever. In the water, like at Animal Kingdom or different places, you'd see princesses on floats kind of going around, or the characters would be kind of in a setting somewhere, and you could get maybe like 15 feet from the princess, and get a picture with her kind of behind you 15, 20 feet. But, character dinings are kind of out right now, all that kind of stuff. But they're still finding unique ways to get the characters involved. That area in like Galaxy's Edge where it's kind of the elevated area, and characters will come out, and Rey and Chewbacca were up there, and waving down and talking to kids and people like that. And so you still get to see characters. You just not have the maybe the one-on-one interactions that you normally would have had. But it's still a nice touch, and still your way to kind of get your Disney fix. So.
Oh, I know. Are they still doing the build a lightsaber and the droid depot thing? Are they doing
They
that?
are. They are.
Okay.
Actually, just did that this last weekend. That was my daughter's 21st birthday wish. There was to build her lightsaber, and so they're doing it social distance, so they're leaving gaps in the table between families and things like that. But she still did. The guy leading the segment, and everybody in there had a mask on,
Right.
and so they're still doing it. It was still fun, and Yoda didn't have to have a mask on because he's just a Force being. So I think. But no, it was awesome. That was my first time actually being in that experience with my daughter, and loved it.
We did that. Our last night of our last trip to Disneyland, my son did it, and that was cool. Just watching it, it was a lot more. I don't want to say emotional, but it really was in a way.
Yeah.
It was really cool. So yeah.
When you were there, did they have, so they did the colored dots kind of thing inside there as well. Did they have that pre-COVID when you did it?
Colored dot, like where you stand, or?
Yeah, so they had a spot for my daughter to stand, and since I was her one guest that went with her, I had a spot behind her, and they're like, stand here, don't leave the dot. And like one time I leaned off the dot like to take a picture, and like I was kind of out of my dot, and they were like, hey, you need to be back on your dot, and so I was like,
I don't think
okay,
so.
Sorry.
I think they just they just had you at each station, and then my wife and I were just behind him, just kind of watching. Yeah, they weren't that way.
So they let you and your wife go with him?
Mm-hmm. You're allowed two guests.
Yeah. See, now they're doing one guest, and they have very specific spots in there. They want you to stand to maximize that 6 feet, separation, and they were making sure I didn't stray from that. So.
Okay. Well, at least they're still doing it. I'm glad, because that was a great experience. So.
Oh yeah, definitely.
All right.
So, thanks for having me on, Lynn. I appreciate it. It's been fun. Anytime. Love to just chat Disney.
Yeah, for sure. Thanks for joining me, and I hope everyone enjoyed this chat we had for one of our mini episodes, and we'll see you over on the main show this next week.
And of course, you can always catch us over at Concierge, and I always like how Ken says it's CONCIEARS, just like mouse. I think he's the first person who kind of coined it like that. I love it. So find us on Facebook or our website, concierge.com, and we'd love to help you plan your next trip.